Let's talk about The Bling Ring, the true crime story, the book, and the many movies and documentaries it has produced. While I put up my laundry, I ask that you ignore the real crime here, which is my floors, and let's talk about The Bling Ring. Let's discuss these people for the characters that they are, starting off with Nick. This story takes place in 2008, 2009, Calabasas, California, with a young, troubled teen just trying to find his identity and his friend group. His love of celebrity and fashion leads him to Rachel, also kind of in the same predicament. This is going to be his main bestie and the person he was really trying to impress. And with their powers combined, they kind of fed into each other's bad self-destructive habits, which means they experimented with drugs, experimented with petty crimes, and then realized, hey, why not steal from our faves? Between Rachel and Nick, they start to brag about their accomplishments. They use it to get into the club scene, and they also meet a similar group of young ladies who don't really see anything wrong with what they're doing. Those other people tied to this crime would be Courtney, her boyfriend Johnny, and up-and-coming scene queens Tess and Alexis. They ended up hitting up the homes of Lindsay Lohan, Paris Hilton, that one chick from The Hills, Rachel Bilson, Orlando Bloom because of his then girlfriend, I think Miranda Kerr, and other rich randos like Brian Austin Green, once again because I believe his girlfriend at that time was Megan Fox. They get caught, which also coincides with Tess and Alexis' reality show, which brings in the attention of Vanity Fair and most of the media at that time. Nancy Jo Sales writes an article that Sofia Coppola reads and is like, I want to show this. And here we are. So some of my thoughts on the book and the movie in no particular or reasonable order. I'm going to start off with my book was missing nearly 10 pages. So WTF, I really was, enjoying the book so much as I wish I could have been able to read it in its entirety. And that's probably because the nostalgia was very for real for me with this book. I was part of the toxic consumer culture. I was on the online communities like Delisted and Oh No They Didn't. Still am with Oh No They Didn't. I'm trying to be a better person, but I also know who I am inside. But overall, my biggest issue and bias when it comes to this story is that the author and movie all follow Nick's perspective. They both are shallow takes from a place of privilege that refuses to look at the smaller details, following through on investigation and analysis, and have managed to really set the tone in which this story is being framed. I'm fascinated with the story because I think it's important to hear from the others. Group youth crime is very dynamic and full of many truths. After reading the story, my biggest takeaway is that Nick has the best edit and control of it all. He was also the one connecting the other accusers and was the one who was found first and confessed to be at the most houses and break-ins. In this story, I do see systemic racism and classist overtones, especially in how Johnny received the most time. The reasoning was because of his past criminal record, but this is also part of the reason why I want to see criminal justice reform, because a lot of times it's just dumbasses hanging out with others at the wrong time. And when you get caught, sometimes it's just a measure of how desirable you are in society and what role they feel you should play. The other issue I have is that I see victim blaming and erasure in Rachel's story, since Nick is invested in making their story the same. It is his love, but also denial in his actions. Overall, my opinion is that this is more of there's probably several truths to the story, and we will never know what actually happened, even though there is technically so many witnesses. Now, for the book itself, I see The Bling Ring as a true crime fallout of the journalist Nancy Jo Sales' original hatchet essay that she did for Vanity Fair on one of the more peripheral characters in the crime. Alexis has since written a book about her life, but also covering these events. And this is, of course, on my wish list because as minor as she was, her real issues were definitely ignored. What do you think of The Bling Ring?